The man stood there for a moment longer, his shoulders slightly hunched, as if he wasn't sure whether to say something more or simply disappear back into the rain. Daniel watched him walk away, the thin fabric of his jacket clinging to his frame, and for reasons he couldn't explain, a strange heaviness settled in his chest. He closed the door gently, leaned his forehead against the wood, and let out a slow breath. $18. That had been all he had left until payday 3 days away. 3 days that now stretched before him like an empty road with no gas station in sight. Behind him, the small apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the old refrigerator and the soft breathing of his daughter, Lily, asleep on the couch under a worn blanket. Daniel walked back to her, knelt and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. She was 7, too young to understand why dinner had been noodles again, why her shoes had holes, or why her dad always looked tired. "It's okay," he whispered, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to convince, her or himself. He turned off the lamp, sat in the armchair, and stared at the ceiling. His mind raced with calculations, worries, and regrets. Maybe he shouldn't have given the money. Maybe kindness was a luxury meant for people who could afford it. Yet despite the fear gnawing at him, there was also a strange sense of peace. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel like he had ignored his conscience. Morning came too quickly. Daniel woke before the alarm, his body trained by years of stress and responsibility. He made Lily a simple breakfast, toast, with a thin spread of peanut butter, and packed her school bag. As she ate, she looked up at him with those big, trusting eyes. "Daddy, are we okay?" she asked softly, as if she already sensed the tension in the air. Daniel forced a smile. "We're always okay, sweetheart." He kissed the top of her head and walked her to the bus stop, waving until the yellow bus disappeared down the street. The day dragged on. Daniel went to work at the warehouse, lifting boxes, his muscles aching, his thoughts elsewhere. Every break he checked his phone, half expecting a message he knew wouldn't come. When his shift finally ended, he walked home under a darkening sky, rehearsing what he would say if Lily asked for something he couldn't provide. But as he turned the corner onto his street, he stopped dead in his tracks. 5 black SUVs were parked outside his building. At first, he thought he had the wrong address. His heart began to pound, each beat loud in his ears. The vehicles were spotless, expensive, completely out of place in his worn-down neighborhood. Men in dark suits stood near them, some talking quietly into earpieces. One of them noticed Daniel and looked directly at him, not with anger, not with suspicion, but with recognition. Daniel's first instinct was to turn around and walk away. Fear crawled up his spine. Had something happened? Had he done something wrong? His mind flashed back to the stranger, to the money, to every bad decision he had ever made. But before he could move, the suited man stepped forward. "Daniel Carter?" the man asked. Daniel swallowed. "Yes. Sir, we've been looking for you." Those words echoed in his head. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Someone across the street stopped to watch. Daniel felt exposed, small, and suddenly very aware of his worn shoes and faded jacket. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely steady. The man gestured toward the nearest SUV. "Please don't be alarmed. We'd like to talk to you." Inside the SUV, the air was warm and smelled faintly of leather. Daniel sat stiffly, his hands clasped together, his heart racing. Another man handed him a bottle of water, which he accepted without thinking. The door closed, shutting out the noise of the street. The man across from him studied him carefully, then spoke in a calm, measured tone. "Last night," he said, "you helped someone in need. You gave him money even though you had very little yourself." Daniel frowned. "How do you know that?" The man smiled slightly. "Because that man was my employer." The words didn't make sense at first. Daniel shook his head. "That's impossible. He was homeless. He was testing something," the man interrupted gently. "And you passed." Daniel's pulse thundered. "Testing what?" "Character, compassion, integrity." Silence filled the SUV. Daniel felt like the ground beneath him was shifting. "I didn't do it for a test," he said quietly. "I just couldn't walk away." The man nodded as if that answer confirmed everything. "That's exactly why this matters." Outside, the engine started. Daniel stared out the window as the SUV pulled away from his building. His life, his certainty, whatever was happening, he knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. And as the vehicle disappeared down the road, A single thought echoed in his mind. What did I just step into? The SUV moved smoothly through the city streets, leaving Daniel's neighborhood farther behind with every turn. He watched familiar buildings fade into glass towers and gated entrances, his reflection staring back at him from the tinted window, confused, anxious, and utterly unprepared for whatever awaited him. His thoughts kept returning to Lily. Who will pick her up from school? What if this takes too long? As if reading his mind, the man across from him spoke again. Your daughter is safe, he said calmly. A driver has already been sent to bring her home, and someone will stay with her until you return. Daniel's chest tightened. You sent someone to my child without asking me? The man raised a hand, not defensively but reassuringly, only to protect her. Nothing more. You have our word. The SUV turned through iron gates that slid open silently. Daniel had never seen a place like this outside of movies. Long, winding roads lined with trees, manicured lawns stretching endlessly, and a massive estate rising in the distance like something unreal. The vehicle came to a stop, and a uniformed attendant opened the door. Daniel stepped out, his legs feeling weak. Inside the mansion, everything was quiet and elegant. Soft lighting, polished floors, art on the walls that looked like it belonged in museums. Daniel felt like an intruder, every step echoing his discomfort. They led him into a large room where a man stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. The man turned slowly. He was older than Daniel expected, silver hair neatly combed, eyes sharp yet calm. He didn't look like a billionaire tycoon or a ruthless executive. He looked thoughtful, almost gentle. You gave me $18 last night, the man said. Daniel froze. You were the stranger. Yes, the man replied. My name is Victor Hale. The name hit Daniel like a punch. Victor Hale was everywhere. News articles, business magazines, headlines about billion-dollar deals and charitable foundations. One of the richest men in the country. Daniel's knees nearly buckled. Why, he whispered. Why pretend to be homeless? Victor gestured for him to sit. Because I wanted to see something real. Not what people say when cameras are on. Not what they give when it's convenient. I wanted to see who people are when kindness costs them something. Daniel sat slowly. And you chose me? Victor smiled faintly. I didn't choose you. You chose compassion. Victor explained that for months, he had been searching for someone to lead a new foundation. Someone who understood struggle, who knew what it meant to choose between bills and food, who would never forget the value of a single dollar. I've seen too many people give away money they never needed, Victor said. But you gave away what you couldn't afford. Daniel shook his head. I'm just a warehouse worker, a single dad trying to survive. Exactly, Victor replied. That's why you matter. Victor slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, bank statements, contracts, plans for housing projects, food programs, education funds, numbers Daniel couldn't even comprehend. I want you to run this foundation, Victor said. You'll be trained, supported, protected. And yes, he added, meeting Daniel's eyes, you and your daughter will never struggle again. Tears burned Daniel's eyes. I don't want charity, he said quietly. Victor nodded. Then don't take charity. Take responsibility. Take purpose. At that moment, the door opened and Lily ran into the room. Daddy! She cried, throwing her arms around him. Daniel held her tightly, emotion overwhelming him. Victor watched silently, his expression softening. That night, Daniel and Lily returned home, but not to the same life. The next weeks passed in a blur. Daniel resigned from the warehouse. He learned, trained, stumbled, and grew. News broke about the foundation led by a former struggling single father. Donations poured in. Shelters were built. Families were fed. One evening, months later, Daniel stood in front of a crowd, Lily beside him holding his hand. Everything I have today, Daniel said into the microphone, his voice steady, started with $18 and a simple choice to care. The crowd applauded, but Daniel looked down at Lily and smiled. He knew the truth. Kindness had changed everything. Success did not arrive quietly. It came like a wave. And like every powerful wave, it carried both light and shadow. 6 months after Daniel's life changed, the world knew his name. News channels called him the $18 man. Social media praised him as proof that kindness still existed. Parents wrote letters saying their children now believed in doing good. Strangers stopped him on the street just to shake his hand. But behind the applause, Daniel felt something heavier growing. Pressure. Every decision mattered now. Every signature, every interview, every word he spoke could help thousands. Or hurt them. Daniel stood alone in his office late one night, the city glowing beneath the glass windows. He looked at a photo on his desk. Him and Lily on their first day at the foundation. She was smiling wide, proud of her dad. That photo grounded him. It reminded him why he said yes. A knock broke the silence. "Come in," Daniel said. Victor Hale stepped inside, slower than before, a cane now supporting him. Age had been catching up, and Daniel could see it clearly for the first time. "You're working too late," Victor said. Daniel smiled faintly. "So are you." Victor sat down. "I didn't come to talk about work. I came to warn you." Daniel's smile faded. "Warn me about what?" Victor leaned forward. "Not everyone likes what you're doing. You've disrupted systems that profit from suffering. Some people don't want housing solved. They don't want hunger ended. They want control." Daniel felt a chill. "Are you saying I'm in danger?" Victor met his eyes. "I'm saying kindness at scale makes enemies." The warning proved true faster than Daniel expected. Within weeks, articles appeared questioning Daniel's qualifications. Anonymous accusations spread online. Donors hesitated. A fabricated scandal went viral overnight. Cameras camped outside his home. Lily was scared. One night she asked him, "Daddy, did you do something bad?" That question hurt more than all the lies combined. Daniel almost quit. He sat on the edge of his bed, head in his hands. The old fear returning, the same fear he felt the night he gave away his last 18, maybe. I'm not strong enough. Maybe I was never meant for this. Then Lily walked in holding a crumpled drawing. It showed a man giving money to another man. Above it, in shaky letters, were the words, "Kindness is brave." Daniel's chest tightened. He hugged her tightly. The next day he did something unexpected. He didn't fight the lies with anger. He didn't hide. He stood in front of the cameras and told the truth, his whole truth. He spoke about poverty, fear, failure, and doubt. He admitted he wasn't perfect. He admitted he still learned every day. "But I know one thing," Daniel said, voice steady. "I know what it feels like to be invisible, and I will never stop standing for people who feel that way, no matter the cost." Silence followed. Then something remarkable happened. Former critics apologized. Whistleblowers came forward exposing the smear campaign. Donations tripled. Volunteers flooded in. The foundation expanded globally. What was meant to break Daniel ended up building something stronger. Years later, Victor Hale passed away peacefully. At the memorial, Daniel stood before thousands. "Victor once told me kindness at scale makes enemies," Daniel said. "But it also creates armies of hope." Lily, now older, stood beside him, confident, fearless. That night, Daniel returned to his old neighborhood. The building was gone, replaced by affordable housing funded by the foundation. He stood where his door once was and closed his eyes. $18. That's all it took. Not to become rich, but to become useful. Not to change his life, but to change many. And if you're watching this right now, wondering if your small act matters, this story is your answer.